Confession time, I had never heard of Only Fools and Horses before moving to London after the lockdown. I've never watched a single episode. Should I feel guilty, out of touch, or just plain lucky? This British sitcom is widely regarded as one of the greatest pieces of television ever made. For over 2 decades, fans have praised it as one of the best-written comedies of all time. First airing in 1981 and running until 2003, it became a cultural staple. At its peak, it drew in an astonishing 21.3 million viewers on Christmas Day in 2001. Today, it remains so beloved that it has even been adapted into a hit West End musical, consistently receiving rave reviews. Despite its legendary status, I have never felt compelled to sit down and watch it. As someone who enjoys mainstream television, I often find myself drawn to newer content rather than older classic. Yes, Only Fools and Horses ended long before streaming services took over entertainment, but its impact is still felt today. People continue to quote it, discuss it, and introduce it to new generations. British sitcoms tend to follow a familiar pattern, a consistent cast, a recognizable setting, and an easy-to-follow format. This makes them ideal for binge watching. Shows like Gavin Stacey, Blackadder, Fawlty Towers, and Still Game fit this mold perfectly. They are light, predictable, and comforting. However, Only Fools and Horses now feels outdated by modern standards. The show takes viewers back to a simpler time in Peckham, long before social media, COVID lockdowns, and today's fast-paced digital world. It offers pure escapism, which is why it still resonates with many fans. Yet, as time passes, even classic shows face scrutiny. Recently, Only Fools and Horses has been hit with disclaimers about outdated and offensive language. For instance, the episode The Russians Are Coming Now carries a warning, contains some offensive racial language of the time. Most seasons, except the final 2, have similar disclaimers. While I generally have a good sense of humor and don't get easily offended, it surprises me that a sitcom from the 1980s now requires such warnings. Some argue that people today need to lighten up and simply enjoy classic humor. As much as I appreciate the show's legacy, I still struggle to connect with it. I'm not a Londoner, and Only Fools and Horses doesn't hold any nostalgic value for me. I have tried watching classic British sitcoms that aren't my usual preference, but they rarely resonate. For example, I once endured an episode of Mrs. Brown's Boys, an experience I regret to this day. Frankly, I've had more enjoyable moments while being sick. Since then, I've steered clear of similar shows. So, while I respect Only Fools and Horses and its place in British television history, it's just not for me. My apologies to Sir David Jason, but I'll be sticking with Plebs and Friday Night Dinner instead.